come back with load bearing firewood and water, but to travel in a bus, go to a bank, open an account, that's a no. So those are the things, I think, which create the problem for us when we talk about climate change, when we talk about women, when we talk about their vulnerabilities. So these stories need to empower women. These stories need to somehow give them that encouragement that if you step out, the media will pick you up, the media will spotlight you, the media will shine the light on you, and you will become someone that people will take pride to talk about. And I think one name that readily comes to mind when you talk about power and empowerment and media and communication is Malala. You can see how she was already connected to the world of communication, and there were many other girls also who were killed, and whose lives were destroyed. But this particular one, because of the media communication, the attention, the father being associated with a media channel, got the publicity, and just look at where she is today. I mean, could you ever in your wildest dreams or she imagine, had she been left to her fate, be where she is today? So you see, if you give a little space to these women, little opportunity, the potential that they have, the talent, the creativity that they come out with is absolutely mind-boggling. And that is what makes you realize that the 50% of our population in Pakistan that constitutes our women are very dynamic women. When you sit down and you talk to them, they may not be educated, but they're intelligent, they're sharp, and they are willing to learn, but you just do not give them the opportunity to realize their potential. So how do we take them, move them forward, turn that awareness into action? Now, one example, and I think we have a journalist here from Earth Dialogue, right? And we did recognize and award a lady journalist because in the last 3 years, thanks to the French embassy, they came up with the idea of the Gender Climate Award. So we have been, as civil society coalition, organizing this award. And just to give you an example, the first year we put out the call for applications, only 21 women responded to that. The second year, it was 87 women who responded to that. The third year, it was 290 women who. So this year, we are hoping that a much wider group of people will apply for that. And when they get recognized and rewarded, they feel incentivized, and others who come and attend and see those ceremonies and see these women being recognized also feel, yes, there is an opportunity for us to excel. So motivation is a very, very important factor here. And those are the kind of stories that should be picked up, and little acts of affirmation that people or women do in their own community should be highlighted. It doesn't have to be a very grand or big thing. I remember in the US, if you watch television, if somebody goes and saves a cat who jumped into a river, the whole evening the media is talking about nothing else but celebrating the act of compassion and bravery of that particular person. So everyone then gets incentivized to do that. So I think if we want to really talk about a resilient future, and we want to talk about building the resilience of women, we have to invest in their education. We have to invest in their healthcare. And more than anything else, I realize that economic empowerment is the key to liberation, is the key to freedom to make your own life choices and your own decisions. Without that, you'll never be able to have the courage to step up and do what needs to be done. So the social impact of vulnerability is there. In Pakistan, we see a lot of vulnerability because 50% of us are women and 50% of us do not have access to resources. Out of the 50%, if we say a lot of them, maybe 45% in the agriculture sector is labor force, but it is not a monetized labor force. It is just a labor force that works, but that does not have the freedom to have its own economic bank account or its own life choices or anything that they want to do. And this circle, because of a patriarchal system and because of using culture and tradition as the front for not letting women step forward, is repeated in the next generation also, because the girl child is the one again who doesn't get enough nutrition, who doesn't get education, who is raised in a way to make her think that you are not an equal. These are not the things that a girl does or a woman does. So when you build those inhibitions into a child's mind right from inception, then you cannot expect them to grow up as bold women. Those of you who are fortunate to come to education institutions like this college or other colleges are very few in number. The large majority out there goes to a very different kind of schooling system where they do not get quality education and they do not get the freedom to make their own life choices. So I think that is a shift that needs to take place. The economic growth rate will automatically not happen when women do not have skills. But now I think we are living in a world where green skilling, new jobs, digital communication are new tools that are available to women. Even without formal education, there are a lot of things that the women can do. And the work from home, I think the best legacy of COVID, despite all the other bad things that happened during that time, is that it's introduced a new work culture. So now women actually can run businesses sitting at home. And those are the sort of things that I think journalism should highlight. At the environmental level, in the rural community, I have seen firsthand that women manage resources, but they're not the managers of those resources. And they are in the front line of bearing the brunt of climate change. And that is something long before the Paris Agreement and long before Pakistan as a country and we as a people became aware about climate change. I, through my interaction with mountain communities and working with and for these communities, realized that the climate is changing, and the first cohort of people that is affecting are women. For example, in the snow-clad mountains, because you've given that picture behind, I will just give you an example. The timing of the melt water depends on when the harvesting, planting takes place. So if there is not enough water or not in ample quantity, it is these women that have to go and fetch water. If there is less water, it is these women who stay awake through the night to get their share of water in the little water reservoir or the water tank that they have marked for themselves. The ripple effect of that is what we are witnessing today. When we are calling for climate action, when we're talking about the gender perspective, when we're highlighting the vulnerability of women, I think largely, to a great extent, we as a nation are responsible for making these women vulnerable. They could have been a lot stronger. They could have coped with adversity in many different ways, and they could have been equal partners in development today. But that has not happened. And journalism needs to bring out that stark contrast that women today are suffering more because of the way society has treated them or the lack of opportunity it has given them. And finally, I would like to say that, on a positive note, the way forward, how we can always turn an adversity into an opportunity. Now, climate change gives us that perfect opportunity to say empowering women is a necessity because you need all hands on deck. You cannot have half the country sitting there as dependents waiting to be rescued when they are fully able bodied people who can play an equal role, whether it is in providing relief or evacuation or rebuilding their homes. They are capable of doing anything. Leave women free to make their own choices. And I can assure you that women are more than capable to look after themselves. So their vulnerability is not due to climate change. Their vulnerability is due to the way we have failed to respond to give them equal status in society. And the moment we start doing that, we will see that these very women will start coping with climate change in a very positive and very active manner. Thank you so much.
We have 7% of the women in Pakistan who make up to in higher education out of 50% of the total population as per the census of the 2023 digital census. How we can, in this current times when we're talking about the climate change, gender vulnerability with respect to climate change, how we can bring social change with this poor status, of women getting higher education in Pakistan out of 50% of the total population.
That is, the fundamental issue that I was also touching upon. If you look at the statistics, you have nearly 90% enrollment at the primary level. That drops in middle school, that further drops in secondary, and then at the higher education level you've given me. So with that rate, you can never progress. And I think journalism, one of the fundamental responsibilities is to relate the role of women in society, not her vulnerability, but the strengths that she brings and what she will contribute to help Pakistan become resilient. And without education, that will not be possible. So to give her the full range of education, and then at the end, let her make her own decision and choices. If she wants to use that education for earning a livelihood, she's welcome. If she does not, she wants to do something else, she's also welcome. But I think that emphasis on education of women is very, very important. Up to at least high school, I would say, in the higher education is maybe a bit too ambition. But if you look at the data, you will see that at the higher secondary, the figures and the numbers are very low. So that is where your voices must unite in favor of not just education for women, but quality education. Because we also see there is a difference in the quality of education and the teaching faculty for men and women. Because women have not received good education, then the ones that they employ in the rural areas or in the public sector schools are not as good as the ones that they employ for the boys' school.